And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 222. Today, we have actually two extraordinary guests. Stay tuned, and we will be back after our short intro from our sponsors.
TC Backer. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. Roofing, siding, windows, gutter, solar. TC Backer.
My name is Ty Backer. The name of the podcast is called Behind the Tool Belt. Thank God this isn't live, or is it? You assholes go live. We might be here for a while, so buckle down.
Welcome back. Happy Wednesday, everybody, to Behind the Tool Belt, episode 222 on this rainy day up here in the great state of Pennsylvania. It looks like they're calling for rain for the next, 5, 6, 7 days. I think we see some relief from that Sunday. I can usually take about 2 or 3 days of it, but then the fourth day, my psyche starts to, get a little weird on me here. But anyhow, maybe I'll go to the tanning salon or something and get some of that vitamin E, C, or D, whatever the hell the sun produces for us. But anyhow, getting back on task here a little bit. I tend to get a little distracted here and there. I guess we are doing a podcast that's live. And before we get started, I have to apologize for we had some technical difficulties, and that's one of many downsides of going live.
My fault.
Yeah, that's all good. Hey, listen, if it wasn't yours, it would have been ours or something else, or the weather outside, or the internet didn't work or something. But that's one of the
live, right?
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about going live is that it's live, raw, and it's uncut and unfiltered and all that good stuff. But we have two amazing guests with us today. I got Pete McKendrick with Roofr. I have the Mr. Micah Ippoliti with TC Backer and amongst other hats that he wears, I'm sure. We were bringing Mike in as plan B just in case the technical difficulties didn't get resolved quick enough. And I didn't have the heart to tell Mike, I need you, but now I don't need you. So see you later. Bye. So that's why Mike's here, even though he's more than welcome to come on the show anytime. But anyhow, how's it going with you guys? Mike, I feel like I haven't talked to you for about a week, and Pete, I haven't seen you since the 21 turkey.
Yeah, it's been a while. So
Pete, how's it going? Let's start with you.
Good. Yeah, things are going good, man. We're plugging right along at Roofr, and lots going on there. Obviously, a big year for us this year. With our CRM coming online and lots of great things going on. So yeah, we're definitely busy for sure.
Good. That's good. That's a good thing to hear. I think a lot of people in our industry right now are busy, which is a good thing. The service, the home service industry. And Mike, how's it going up there, buddy, upstairs?
Everything's been great, honestly. I miss you. I feel like I haven't seen you too. I know between all the traveling and everything going on, it's hard to catch each other sometimes nowadays, but yeah, life is good. I mean, just working on systems and processes and training and implementing and making things happen. Pete, I'm sure you know all about systems and processes.
Oh yeah, it's our favorite, right?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why I thought, for a plan B, because I figured you would end up coming back in, Pete, but I didn't know how long. I thought with the relationship that you two have had and have now, and being co-workers and co-leaders at the same company a couple of years ago, I thought, regardless, it would be a great topic because I'm sure you guys have some stories that you could fill some of our viewers and listeners in on, and some of your experiences as well, and Pete, I know you've been in the industry, and same with Mike for a long time now. And I was thinking earlier, I was kind of reflecting a little bit about what maybe I might ask you or things like that. And I typically jot just a couple of things down, nothing mind blowing, because I don't want to stump you guys too bad. And of course you guys know, because you both have been on the show before, it's not scripted. I very rarely share with anyone with what we're going to talk about, because I like to keep it as authentic and real as possible. So we really don't have a list of questions, but one of my questions for you and this is more so to kind of pump you up a little bit. Like, do you have any idea of how many contractors that you've impacted or influenced with the being in the industry, the part of the industry that you've been working in for so long? Do you have any idea?
It's a great question. I think that the number of Mike and I have talked about this before, the number of contractors that we've interacted with over the years, and that we've gotten to know not only them, but their business and their employees and, how their business runs. And sometimes we've gone out and actually visited their businesses. It's got to be in the hundreds, right. of contractors, and I've been lucky enough to really get to know a solid handful of them, and really get to become friends with them, and get to know them a little bit better beyond just running their roofing business. And, so it's been a really nice part of the industry. There's a lot of people in this industry that, I call my friends now, that we text all the time. Ty, you and I talk quite often. And, John Broche is one that comes to mind. Like John was texting me this morning already, like we go back and forth and, but there's just a lot of folks that, that I've gotten to know over the years because of it. So, I really appreciate that part of the industry. I'm glad that we're here to help. I mean, that's what we want to do, so, any help that I can be along the way, I try to help contractors any way I can. Sometimes that's with Roofr, sometimes that's without, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just advice on what they've got going on. But yeah, it's gotta be, it's well up there for sure.
Well, I was thinking it's got to be probably close to 1,000, if not thousands of contractors. And why I was thinking that was because I know you well enough to know how humble of a person you are. And Ashley, your entire family, both of you are just great, wonderful people. And I always enjoy our time spent together, whether it's charitable events, whether it's at a roofing conference or just an afternoon, hey, how are you, text message back and forth kind of thing. And I always enjoy, spending time with you guys. And, I thought, I bet he doesn't even really realize or has really thought about it. And what integral, important part that you've actually played in that. I mean, the CRM's huge. I mean, for those of you out there listening that may not know what a CRM, and it's a customer relationship management tool. And Pete and Mike have both been in that space for a long time. Hence why I don't think we necessarily poached Mike, but that's why we wanted to bring Mike on, because we knew his experience and his background and where we wanted to go and how robust of an SOP we needed on the back end or front end or even in the middle there. I mean, we still run the same CRM since, day one, since we were ever introduced to it. But that important crucial role, and you probably, and maybe you do know this, but don't think about it enough or get enough credit for it. But that the CRM has been a game changer for us, especially probably during COVID, like where things were needed to be more automated, not such, face-to-face engagement and stuff like that, but not just do that, but for us to keep everything in one place. Right. The solidarity of it, of, the estimating, the financial tracking to just follow up to everything. And Mike can probably talk more about, how we have our things set up and why it plays such an important role. But before we dive into that, for those that are listening that may not know what Roofr is, why don't you explain to us what it was, what it's like now and where it's going. And then we can probably dive more into some personal stuff here.
Sure. Yeah. Roofr started out as a marketplace model. So what we were essentially was a broker between contractors and homeowners looking to get their roof done. And we would kind of facilitate the deal. We realized right away that the whole scenario was kind of lacking. Contractors didn't necessarily have the greatest tools they needed. Because of that, they weren't really offering the greatest customer experience. So we kind of pivoted. We started to build tools for the contractor, really kind of became a household name as a measurement tool, competing in the measurement space. And then it's just kind of evolved from there based on customer feedback and contractors saying, hey, it'd be great if you guys did this, right? And then that became like our next thing. So as the features grew, the next logical step was to start to build CRM functionality to kind of bring everything together into a one solid platform. We had some really good standalone tools that contractors were using. Some guys were just using us for measurements. Some guys were using us for just proposals. Some guys were using all of it together. The instant estimator became really popular very quickly. But it was, internally, it was like, okay, how do we kind of mold all these things together into one platform, that contractors will want to use. And so that's where the CRM functionality kind of emerged. And, then we started down that path. So the goal from the beginning, a lot of people think like, it's just, they saw an opportunity and they're going. But the goal for Roofr from the very beginning, I'll remember one of the first conversations I had with Richie, our CEO, even before I worked for Roofr. And he told me, I want to build an all-in-one solution for the roofer. Like, I want to be the single platform that a roofer can use to run his entire business. And I remember saying to him, like, no, don't do that. That's crazy. It's way too much. It'll take forever. Like, like, it's just like, we don't want to go down that path. Like, maybe we'd be like the best sales tool, but to just be the all-in-one is going to be crazy to even try to manage and build. And here we are. I mean, we're doing it. So, and we're doing it well. The team has been just an exceptional group of people that we have. And, we've brought in some great people. We're figuring it out. We've got the way we're set up internally is just fantastic to keep everything moving forward. And we're doing it. I mean, we're building that all-in-one solution. And that's kind of the direction of Roofr here in the next year. And then over the next 3 to 5 years is to build as close to an all-in-one for the contractor as we can. So essentially a tech stack in a box, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And do you see how do you see the role of technology evolving in the CRM space, and what unique contributions do you hope that it brings?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, back when Mike and I started, back when we were together there in the office trying to figure this thing out and get people to buy CRM, so many times, we heard like, oh, we don't need tech. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm good. My 3-ring binder is great. And then I think COVID caused us to have this explosion of tech. And then contractors were like, well, I need all of this. Right. Mm-hmm. So next thing you know, you've got 15 different pieces of software just to get through your day, and your team's all over the place and they're manually entering and double entering and all this stuff. And so I think the biggest contribution that Roofr is going to play, and really the direction tech is moving, is a consolidation, right? Like, let's get away from having 15 pieces of tech. Maybe we have 3, right? Maybe we have 2. Maybe if we're small enough, maybe we can do it with just Roofr, right? Like, we can do it with just one. So I think that's the biggest role. I think that's going to be the biggest role that we're going to play, is that, we're kind of leading the charge on that whole consolidation of tech.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, how would you say, you can use TC Backer as an example. How much of a crucial component has a CRM has been for our company or any other company that might be using one or should use one?
I mean, it's incredibly crucial using a CRM, having a system put in place that allows everybody to kind of be organized and all in on the same information. And like, to piggyback off of what Pete was saying with the industry and consolidation and bringing these tools together, because it's absolutely true that having 5 different apps that I need to open up or need to learn or how to function or how to use in order to complete a job, land a sale, get paid, whatever the case may be. I mean, it's time consuming. It's not cost effective. And there could be a lot of pitfalls when it comes to integrations or duplicate entry, like you were saying. So that all-in-one process, having that where it's still scalable, regardless of the size of the contractor, is extremely important. So for us at TC Backer, we are a larger size contractor, one of the largest on the East Coast, I would definitely say. So we need platforms that can provide the robust amount of work that we perform and put through. And without having stuff documented when we're opening new locations or when we're bringing on new hires or we're expanding the team, without having those SOPs built that follow your systems and processes, it's almost impossible to continue to grow. So seeing somebody who comes from pen and paper in the past and watching them start out slowly with the basics of the platform that Pete and I used to be at, and then watching them succeed into like, wow, I went from being a $3 million, roofer to 5 to 10 million this year, and then so on and so forth. And then watching them grow and expand, and then knowing that like the knowledge that we've gained from working with contractors like you, Ty, asking you questions, learning from you, And then at that time, being able to translate that to other roofing contractors and help them grow, help them become better, and just overall create a community of changing the dynamic of what people envisioned a roofer was, right? We're professional. This is what we do. We're tradesmen. We're contractors. And it's just amazing to see the relationships that have been built, the growth between these companies, that they've had exponential growth. And just even at TC Backer alone, since 2019, the growth that has been tremendous, and you're leading the charge on that. And the systems and processes that we're putting in place are really fundamentally helping us continue that mold. So no matter what we do, where we go, how we pivot, we've always got a game plan. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You both touched on a lot of things, how things are evolving and changing continuously. And if you're not willing to make that change and adapt to these changes, whether it be with technology, especially with technology, without technology, and it could be from a roofing aerial or instant quote or to whatever it is, social media marketing, right? Like, because I know there's still some contractors out there that don't use social media. I know that there's some contractors out there that don't have, a CRM. Shit, there's still some roofers out there that are hand nailing nails, which, I mean, there's no downside to that either. But I think for, efficiency and streamlining and production wise, I think it could be a cool little niche, hand nailing shingles down. But I think as far as a production standpoint of things, it's not a very timely thing, especially when it comes to installing a roof under, weather conditions or holidays approaching or time frame, time management sake in general. I just don't think, if you're not keeping up with the times, man, you're going to get left behind. And Roofr has been, Pete, I think you touched on this, is like the trailblazer of the all-encompassed roofing, all-inclusive roofing platform for roofers, and then also being, and from what I'm hearing from everybody, it's a great product, but not just that, it's an affordable product. So from your guys' experience, and Pete, you talked about this too. It's like, I think for a lot of younger contractors, they get distracted on all the shiny things. It could be roofing, aerial measurement tools. It can be, other bolt-on things that you can bolt onto your CRM and stuff like that. What's your opinion on, what do you think a roofing contractor should focus on, especially let's say they're in their first 1 to 3 year time frame? Like, what do you think they should really focus on as far as technology goes?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that makes you instantly competitive is a quoting tool, right? Like having something that you can write professional proposals with. Because if I'm brand new, like let's just say I just started out, I'm probably not flooded with leads. I'm probably not overwhelmed with customers. I could probably keep track of that on a Google sheet. Right? Like I don't necessarily need to pay, $100 a month or whatever it is to have a user in a CRM, because I probably don't have the volume or the staff to need that. Mm-hmm. But what I can employ on day one that will give me a distinct advantage and give me that professional look that the other guys maybe don't have in my area is a proposal tool. Having a really nice professional looking polished proposal gives you a leg up from day one. And they're fairly inexpensive now in the market to use them, so that you can use one right away. Like you can implement one on day one. And then you don't have to go down this path of having, 5 different pieces of software. Like I would say the 2 critical pieces for me, if I was starting tomorrow, I would get a proposal tool and I probably would get Company Cam, because I don't know how you live life without Company Cam in today's market. But those 2 pieces would be where I would start. And then as you evolve, you can always add those other things in. Like you'll know when the time is right to add that CRM, you'll start to sense it. Like, hey, we're getting overwhelmed with customers. We really need a better way to organize this than our Excel spreadsheet. Let's go ahead and get a CRM at this point, I think. But, out of the box, one of the things that we've tried to do at Roofr is we've really tried to look at that market and say like, okay, if I was a roofer starting out right now, or maybe I'm a guy that's $1 to $3 million in and I want to go to 5 or 10, like Mike said, what's a product that I can do that with without breaking the bank? That's not going to be a huge investment. And so Roofr has really tried to stay in that wheelhouse, build a product that's really simple and easy to implement, easy for your team to get in and use. It's very, visually appealing, very easy on the eyes to kind of maneuver through and find things, but it's also cost effective, right? It's something that's a product that you can use very, very cheaply, early on, and then you can evolve into more and more features as you need them. So, it's one of the things that we've really focused on. But yeah, that's where if I was brand new, that's where I would start.
Yeah. No, that's good. You got any? Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
I have a question for you, brother. As far as scalability goes in the Roofr CRM, right? So let's say that, I am starting out fresh, and I want to go with Roofr because I've got my proposal tool, I've got my measurement reports, and I've got a CRM system so I can perform everything I need to do. Now, as I continue to grow, right? Let's say it's just me, an office admin, and, a production guy, right? And I'm selling. As I continue to grow, what is Roofr CRM implementing to help that change for the individual contractor and compensate for their growth?
Yeah, we have Teams functionality built in already, right? So we have what you traditionally would think of as adding your users on. We have the ability to create teams, in Roofr now. We have some teams that are big, that are already using Roofr, 50, 70 people on the platform, that allows them to add those in. But we're, the way we're set up now, we have the ability for these guys to really kind of customize the views of things to really fit them well. So if you're a sales guy, you can just look at the sales stuff. If you're a production guy, you can just look at the production stuff. You don't have to be worried about, the leads coming in and all that. So, so just having the flexibility inside of the platform to kind of customize it to who you are, what your role is in the company. We've really focused on that early on. Taking that into account every time we build a feature is, okay, I'm the manager. What view of this would I want? I'm the sales guy. What view of this would I want? Right. And how can I quickly create these filters to where, I can save these views and make it easy for me to maneuver through there, the stuff that's important to me. One of the things we have coming out here shortly is CRM, what we call CRM Home, which is essentially going to be a dashboard where you can see what you have going on every day, your tasks and your calendar events and things like that. And that'll be flexible for like the sales guy and those guys to really see like what they have going on every day. So
a daily plan.
Yeah, exactly. Like a to-do list, right? Like it's more or less like, hey, like I want to know what I have to do. And really that came from a lot of customer feedback, people like Ty saying, I want to be able to just quickly look and see who on my staff has overdue tasks. And then I can find out why. Like, why are we behind on these things? Things like that. A lot of that feedback coming in. So, that's where that kind of arose from.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I was sitting here thinking when you both were talking, one of the coolest things I like about having a CRM and Pete, you were talking about, early on, you could basically keep track of everything on Google Docs or Google Sheets and Google Calendar and stuff like that. And literally we did that, early on. Like we essentially built our own CRM through Google and it's possible. But I think one thing that a lot of contractors, especially early on, don't understand overhead. And the thing that I like about a CRM is when you're building out that quote or that macro, that estimate actually has your profit in it, your overhead in it, sales commission, and everything. And you can make whatever you need visible to the salesperson, the production team, the admins and all that stuff when you're building out that quote. And the one thing that I thought about is sometimes you got to spend that little extra money, not necessarily to make money, right? Make more money, but to save money, right? So, absolutely. And I feel like a CRM, and especially where Roofr's going right now, explain the macro process / estimating, process. Like give us a little high level overview of what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I think you touched on it. The biggest advantage, I think, to a CRM and a quoting tool like that is the standardization, right? So now, if you go out and quote a job, and I go out and quote a job, and Mike goes out and quotes a job, we're all quoting the same way, right? It's not you have 20 something years of experience, so you're looking at it one way. I worked last week at Chick-fil-A, so I'm looking at it completely different, right? So like this way I can come right into your organization and I immediately can figure out how to quote just like you quote, because now you're able to take everything that you've got from years of experience and being able to quote a job and knowing, how to be profitable, and you can put it into these templates. And so that way now I'm just choosing a template, right? And everything's built in. So it changes the entire way that I can hire, the way that I train, the way that my team is utilizing the product out in the field is just completely different now because, I don't have to spend hours and weeks training somebody on how to look at a roof and quote a roof and how to measure and all these things. So it's made it so much quicker to get the team up to speed when you have new hires. The biggest thing for us is that we really focused on the proposal as a presentation style tool. We wanted, we know a lot of guys still do in-home presentations. They use products like Engage and PowerPoint to build these big, presentations that their contractors do for the homeowners. They really focus on the value that they're bringing as a contractor, why you would choose them, because let's be honest, I think Chris said it one time when we were on a podcast. He said, at the heart of it, we're all just nailing on shingles, right? So what sets us apart from the other guy? And so, having those nice presentations and being able to say, this is why I'm different, right? This is why you want to choose me over the competition. What we tried to do was build a proposal that allowed you to create a presentation inside of it. And that's what our guys are doing with it. They're bringing in their PDFs and their about us pages and, their sales brochures and everything to where they can maneuver through that thing. And it's like having a PowerPoint presentation that the customer can sign at the end of it. And that's been the biggest advantage, I think, to the way we've built our proposal tool is it kind of incorporates that presentation feel into it. And it gives you the ability to either do an in-home presentation, do one via Zoom like this, send it to the customer and let them scroll through it on their own, but they're getting that same information as if you were sitting at their kitchen table like you would have 10 years ago.
Wow, that's amazing. Mike, do you have any questions?
I just want to say that one thing that I love about that is when you can create an interactive proposal tool. So you can include elements like, videos or options that the homeowner can check on or off. Or I'm going to give a quick shout out to Steve Spence from Project Map It, throw that inside of our templates. It shows our brand impression, right? It shows the quality and quantity of jobs that we performed. And just like you said, you nailed it on the head, right? Driving home that value of why the homeowner should be choosing TC Backer or whatever your company may be.
Yeah. And Pete, when you were talking earlier, you had mentioned a couple things just briefly there. And it's funny because when you brought it up, I was thinking this to myself, the hiring process, of, being able to hire somebody that has experience in the roofing industry versus somebody that doesn't have experience in the roofing industry. Let's talk a little bit about why Roofr would, be a better choice for someone to use it versus something else that has to bolt on 3 other components to come up with an estimate.
Yeah, the biggest thing for us, obviously, is the speed at which you can learn it because it's all seamless, right? Pulling a measurement, creating a proposal, working the job through the CRM is essentially all under one roof now, right? So it's not like I have to spend a week learning one software and then, I'm going to move this into my CRM. Now I got to learn the CRM and how that functions as a sales guy. It's very simplistic. Our product is very straightforward. Like I always say, you could probably learn it in an afternoon, quite honestly. Like if you have a little bit of tech ability, it's going to be very, very simple for you to figure out Roofr. A lot of our guys figure it out with, very little training and guidance. I mean, we have a fantastic customer success team and support team that are there. We have an implementation team now that does nothing but help you get your CRM up and running and get like your catalog loaded and your templates built and all that kind of stuff. And definitely utilize those guys if you come on to Roofr, because that's what they're there for. And they're a wealth of knowledge. But you'll be amazed at how quickly your team will pick it up because it is so seamless and so easy to just maneuver through it. It almost like leads you to the next step, right? Once you're in the job, okay, my next step, order a measurement, my next step, create a proposal. Like, it's almost leading you right through the steps in the order that you would need to run a job. So we've really focused on that and making it a very easy product for a team to use. And I think because of that, now it gives these guys the advantage of, I can go out and hire somebody that has no roofing background because I can easily teach them how to work inside my process, and they are coming probably with no bad habits, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been quoting another way in another tool for another company prior to this. So there's not those bad habits that, that they potentially have picked up along the way, and I can go get somebody who's fresh and teach them my standard operating way of doing things.
Absolutely. I would, and why I brought that up is because one of our biggest pain points has been, whether we hire someone experienced or someone that's inexperienced is that learning curve of our tech stack.
Right.
Has always been one of our biggest nemesis. And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. But some of the tech stack doesn't even communicate with our CRM. Sometimes we have to still manually put stuff in there, but it sounds like you guys and what Richie's vision was early on. And I'm sure a lot of people doubted it. And you mentioned a little bit earlier, like, wow, this could be a huge, heavy lift, but it sounds like you guys have made, leaps and bounds and strides to get it where it's at. And it sounds pretty cool. But I was just sitting here thinking to myself, like, one of the hardest things, because like you said, like, you bring someone on that's experienced, they have bad habits, they know a different CRM, they know different aerial measurement tools. So you're basically retraining them all over again. But then when you bring somebody new in, it's like, unless they're very tech savvy, to teach them how to pull a roof measurement, how to show them how to create an estimate, put a customer's name in, all those things, that's probably the biggest learning curve. And what we've done here is, and I'm sitting here thinking, how can we cut our training time in half? Right. So we've came up with this, what we call the incubator, which is kind of a joke because in school we hatched eggs and you get to watch the embryo turn into a chick with the light behind it. You can kind of see it growing, and eventually it hatches into a chicken, right? So we got like a 30, 60, 90-day incubator, which I think most people probably get through it pretty quickly, like 30 to 45 days. And we invest that time into them up front instead of dealing with, proposals being messed up for the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months, because that's probably the biggest thing. And I think that's where a lot of contractors get a bad name of, like, people saying, salespeople saying, hey, they didn't pay me. Well, did you follow the process? Like, did you take the time to learn the process? And there's always two sides to every story, but we're always trying to figure out how to speed that up. It's not just necessarily speed to lead, but it's also speed to estimate, speed to training, speed. Like, how can we force feed somebody with a fire hose in 14 days and get them to learn all this? And it's like, okay, either we need to take a step back, create a university, right? That with training that they got to sit through and, all this stuff, or do they just, for at least the tech stack and estimating portion of it, do they just go out and get Roofr and cut that whole first 2 weeks in half, 90 days, actually, before someone can actually physically write a proposal intelligently without any errors? It takes a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that, like we're always adding like small upgrades, small feature changes to the platform. And I thought one of the things that we did early on that was really smart on our part, for these guys, keeping in mind that we're dealing with the small to medium sized businesses who are, trying to grow, they're hiring maybe their first salespeople. We built in profit guardrails, right? So you can set like a basement, like a minimum profit margin that person cannot drag the profit below that, or guardrails, like they have to stay within a range when they're creating a profit on a job. So all of these things to make it, dummy proof, for lack of a better term, but, to make it so that if I took someone who was seriously inexperienced, they couldn't really screw up my proposals, right? Like they can't go in there and sabotage a proposal. They can only do so much, and we're still going to end up profitable at the end. And maybe we didn't make the profit that we wanted on that job, but they're not going to give away, they're not giving away the farm, at least. So, simple things like that we've built in with those kind of that idea in mind that, hey, there's probably going to be people in this platform that are coming from pen and paper, that are coming from another industry, that aren't experienced. And what can we do to kind of hone this in and make it very easy for them to use very quickly and not make, drastic mistakes that are going to cost the business money.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So when you're talking about like the rock bottom pricing, so that means they can't adjust the numbers, but they can, like, as far as getting.
Yeah. So what you would do is in the back end, as as an ops person, like Mike could go in and set, we don't want to go below 30% on our profit margin. And as the sales rep, when I tried to drag it below there, it would stop me. It wouldn't let me go below that bottom piece. So you guys can essentially set a minimum. I mean, we used to have contractors build it into the back end, right? Like, we would have contractors that would literally build profit into their numbers on the back end, so that if their salesman literally put the profit margin at 0, they were still making something. So we built a guardrail into where, you can kind of manage the profit margins that the sales rep is using out in the field.
Yeah. And that's a good point too, going back to talking a little bit about how, early on, especially for me, 20 years ago, I wasn't even thinking about, overhead expenses. It was just me, right? Pen and paper, going out there, literally giving the estimate, doing the job, things like that. But as we grew, right, I needed to hire more people because we wanted to grow. Plus, it was just, we were getting busier and I needed more people. I had to find the who instead of the how. And as we grew, as things started to build out and we needed to hire more people, there's a lot of moving parts. And it's like, I didn't understand overhead. That I understood I had to go buy pen, I had to go buy paper, I had to buy ink, and people don't even take it that granular. But that's all overhead expenses. So with you being able to build that in there, that's also educating the contractor too. Like, hey, don't forget about your overhead expenses, and then having that minimum, like, okay, we need to make 30% on this, and then they can't go below that. That's something that a lot of these guys probably aren't even thinking about. You know what I mean? Because they got so much going on. And I know what it's like to be a solopreneur, basically at that point. And then when you start hiring people, now you become an entrepreneur. You know what I mean? So that is a good education. Not only is it like a estimating software tool, but it's also an educational tool, setting them up for success is what I love about this so far. I love when we get together, because every time that I either talk to Matt or Nick or Richie or you, like, you guys are always doing something to improve, not just the product, but the major impact that you guys are having on the roofing industry as a whole is awesome.
Yeah, I said to our customer success people early on, is you guys will become, whether you like it or not, because they were all fairly new to the roofing industry. I said, you guys will become business coaches, right? You're not just a customer success person that's training someone how to use Roofr. Mm-hmm. Like, you're going to become someone that they're going to say, I don't understand overhead. Explain it to me. What do you mean? Like, I'll never forget probably one of the most impactful conversations I had with a contractor early on in our days, when Mike and I were at the other CRM, is I remember having a conversation with a contractor and showing him job costing. And I asked him what his profit margin was. And he said to me, what do you mean? And I said, well, what is your margin on jobs? And he said, well, when a job is done, I collect a check and I pay everybody that I need to pay. And whatever's left over, that's my profit. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's not profit margin. Right. And then it was an eye opener for me, because I realized that these guys were people who had built a business off of reputation and off of really just knowing production in and out. But at the heart of it, they didn't really understand how to run a business. Mm-hmm. Right. And I think that's one of the biggest things for, like, you have all of these people at all of these platforms, all of these sales, these tech platforms in the industry. And I often say to contractors, utilize them, leverage them. Like, you're one contractor. Maybe you're talking to, you're having lunch with another contractor. That's 2 contractors had a conversation today. My success people, sorry, made balloons come up. My success people are probably talking to 6 or 8 contractors today, one person. And we've got a handful of them, right? So we're probably talking to 50, 100 contractors a day. Right. So think of all of the information that we're taking in all the different ways that we're seeing people run a business, all of the successes, all of the failures that we're seeing, right? So we become a wealth of knowledge by default. Any of these guys that have been in the business for years and are working at these tech platforms are just a wealth of knowledge of how to properly run a roofing business, because they see it. Like they live it. They talk to these guys every day, and they know that one guy is an expert on profit margin and the other guy has no idea what profit margin is. Right. So, take advantage of those people if you don't, right? Leverage those customer success people and those implementation people, because, I'm blown away all the time by our people internally who I know have come from no roofing background, and to see the conversations that they have now, they're experts on the roofing industry, right? They're experts on running a roofing company. They understand the ins and outs and all the intricacies of creating proposals and what gets a proposal signed and what's needed in it. It's crazy how much information they're able to take in, and they definitely are underutilized for sure.
Yeah, no, and the reason why I brought that up was because of Mike. I remember how much we leaned on Mike, especially, because we went from Google to QuickBooks, and QuickBooks measures things on more of a macro level. It doesn't micromanage each individual job where you can get that breakout on it just didn't do that. Excel spreadsheets just doesn't do that. I mean, maybe it did, maybe it doesn't. I mean, we used what we called was the job ledger, and there was so much that we had to do to be able to come up with sales commissions, overhead, profit, all those things. And it was sometimes it went wonky, sometimes it didn't share. And if you weren't on the server or the network, you didn't have access to it. It was all of these things. And then when we were introduced to Mike back in 2019, he had opened our eyes to so many other things and the simplicity of what a CRM could do for us.
Yeah. I remember when we added projected versus actual in the costing, and the eye opener that was for contractors, right? To say hey, here's what we quoted and here's what this job actually cost us. And this is what we thought our profit margin was going to be. And this is what our profit margin actually ended up. And where the hell did all the rest of the money go? Right. So, and it allowed these guys to really dial that in and say, okay, now we can literally look at this costing sheet and say, whatever, this guy's charging. I mean, I worked for a contractor one time where the guy was going and putting cases of water. So he wasn't thirsty on the job, but he was charging them to the jobs. Right. So, and that's not necessarily a job cost. I mean, it is, I guess, but not necessarily specifically to that job. So it was things like that, a couple extra Home Depot trips in there or whatever the case may be. But we had no idea that those were even happening until we started to really look at what are we quoting up front, and what are we actually spending and why, or maybe we're misquoting. Maybe we're just misquoting up front because we are missing something. Our sales guys are missing something when they're quoting, or they're forgetting to put something on the quote. All of these things that we can dial in now because we have that ability to, like you said, see that down to a granular job level.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that.
That really reminds me, Pete. I'm sure you remember, and I know it still happens today, but I know line item, single line item estimating, right, for per square price is an easy way to, figure out how much you should sell a job for. But when it comes to actually breaking down your numbers and, like you were saying, seeing your profitability, seeing what your overhead is and making sure that everything is accurate, it's impossible to do that by estimating off of a per square price, just selling a three-line HTZ roof system with a golden pledge warranty. You can't see that information. So being able to take everything that they have in that per square price, break down the materials, the labor, any miscellaneous charges, add in the overhead, any taxes, whatever it may be, commission, profit, giving them a roadmap, basically a checklist of line items that they can review while they're building that estimate or that quote, and then having that translate once the job is sold into that profit and loss. So like you were saying, let's say that we weren't expecting the decking to be rotted, right? But now we go in there, we tear off the roof and the decking's rotted. Well, we didn't have that in our original quote. So in our profit and loss analysis, I'm going to put that in my actual, right? Because I projected that it was just going to be this. But now I've got to replace, 4 sheets of OSB. It's going to cost X amount of dollars for material and labor. And that's just it really is a game changer when you start to utilize that type of functionality and see where you are in your business as a whole. And Ty says it all the time, right? That gives a contractor the ability to stop working in their business, start working on their business. because you're not in it. Like, it becomes the catalyst that allows you to hand off that transaction, right? Hand off the knowledge, hand off what you've learned, because it's already spelled out and broken down for you. Because if you take somebody that's green behind the ears, doesn't know what they're doing, and just give them a per square price, then all they're going to do is do a quick squares, get it, put the numbers in, and say, here, homeowner, this is how much your roof is going to cost. In reality, we might only be making 10% on that job, though, because of unforeseen expectations or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, or something as simple as complexity of the roof that's not taken into consideration on that, right?
Exactly.
Like, what if the roof is super cut up and the labor is going to be extreme? Like, we don't know that if we're just quoting a per square price, and I think one of the things that I think gets missed in this is that every piece of software, especially like all these proposal tools, ours and some of the other guys, they're all built they're all built for line item pricing, right? They're all built to build a line item quote. Like, they're designed to do that. And they're underutilized because we still see a lot of contractors that are just using a per square price, essentially a single line item on a quote to quote, right? And then they're killing themselves because, like you said, they're losing all that detail and all that ability to go back and track all that information and dial it in to say, like, hey, are we overspending here? Or did we forget these specific line items that now we're having to count, we're paying for them from ABC, but we didn't calculate that up front when we did when we actually did our proposal. So, keep in mind that your tool, whatever tool you're using to write your proposals, was built to do that. It was built to house line item pricing and be super detailed. Like, that's the advantage to using those platforms.
100%.
It's twofold as well. I'm sorry, Ty.
Nope, go ahead, Mike.
I love this because it really is also it helps training too, right? So if you have somebody, they don't know the difference between 15-pound felt or a synthetic underlayment. I mean, having those line items there and incorporating the estimates with your actual sales training when you bring somebody on who has no experience, and hand them a piece of 15-pound felt versus whatever synthetic underlayment you're using from your manufacturer, and showing them the difference, right? Showing them the difference so they can relay that information to the homeowner and making them more knowledgeable, building that sales rep up. So instead of, again, just saying, hey, here's the price, it teaches them the components of a roof system, which, I mean, honestly, you have to know that. You have to know how to build a roof, right? You can't just, it's not the used car dealership industry, right? You can't just be like, oh yeah, it's a V8, You have to understand how a roof is put together for exactly what you just said. How cut up is it? How many facets are there? How many valleys? Right? It's all that information you have to understand. Like, can I, instead of using, 3 rolls of ice and water or leak barrier, can I swap that out and maybe just use 2 of underlayment instead? Those are the things that you gain from the experience, the knowledge, training, and then having that checklist or that estimate built out for you with all of your line items.
Yeah, I love that. I was thinking the same exact thing that both of you touched on is the complexity of the roof. If it's a 24-inch overhang, it's required to have, two courses of ice and water. If it's a hip roof, you're going to need all kinds of cap shingles. There's so many different variables that go into it. And we were guilty of doing, I called it the magic number, the XYZ per square price, whether it was siding, whether it was with roofing. I'm guilty of it myself. And, some jobs you win, some jobs you lose, but, in today's day and age, if you want to stay relevant, is, with that line item bidding or pricing is really the only way to go, because exactly what you have going into that job. They have everything built in there as far as, steep slope, 2 stories. If it's over, dumpster cost, that's something that nobody takes into consideration either, unless you already have that line item built in there. I mean, that dumpster can cost you for upwards to $1,200 a job. That could be 10% of a $12,000 job if you didn't incorporate that into one of your line items. And if you're doing the lump sum, or the bulk pricing or whatever however you want to term that, I was guilty of it too for the longest time. And that's where, Perry and I, 15 years ago, we developed an Excel spreadsheet, and up until recently, we just stopped using the job ledger. It wasn't as granular as the line items, but I could work out the quote, get an estimate from the distribution, put it in as line item number 1, $1,000 for materials, $1,000 for labor cost, and then it would give us our profit on it. So with having this, especially integratable with a roofing measurement tool or one that's already built in like Roofr, I mean, it's really a no-brainer. And I love the training. I'm sitting here playing the tape through on how easy it would be to train somebody, especially if they didn't come from the space, right? Just put the address in, beams up to the satellite imagery comes back, and next thing you know, it's building your quote basically for you. And like Mike said, as far as the training goes, like learning what the difference is between drip edge and fascia, learning what ice and water is compared to synthetic felt paper, learning what the different products are, from 3-tab shingles to Sealer Ridge to Timber Tech to, all of these different options that you put inside your macro. It's forcing them to learn how to actually build the roof out. So it's actually a part of your training process while you're teaching them how to use your CRM at the same time. So it's like a 1-2 punch. I love it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too is how many times as a contractor have we returned material to the supplier at the end that we quoted up front that we needed, that we turned out we didn't need it. It takes me back to a conversation I had, Southeastern Roofing, Mike. I don't know if you remember them, out of Atlanta. I remember having a conversation with them, and he said, we went from per square pricing to line item pricing, and we realized that we were quoting double materials, flashing and other materials on top of the same area of the roof. And when I went to line item pricing and realized I could pull that out and subtract that because I was putting flashing there or whatever the case may be, he said, I ended up saving the company $70,000 in 12 months because now we weren't over quoting what we needed, because we were able to see, okay, we don't need it there because we're putting a different type of material there. Right. So simple things like that, like you don't realize, like you said, sometimes it's not always about making money as much as it is about saving money. Right. And some of that can be time, some of that can be materials. There's just so many ways that we can affect the bottom line from a savings standpoint that we overlook. Like I remember talking to a contractor who on every single job, he had to figure in a pickup fee because he had the supplier going back out and picking up all the material that they didn't use on the job.
Wow. That's crazy. Mike, you have anything else you want to input on that, or because we're creeping up on our 1 hour mark here, and we didn't get to talk too much about personal stuff and how you guys actually met. That would probably be another episode. But before we get off, I'd like to hear something from both of you. It can be a personal or professional nugget that we can actually leave our viewers and listeners with. Mike, go ahead. Why don't you start?
Perseverance, pushing through, doing whatever it takes to make sure that your team is functioning and moving in the same direction. No, I'm not a big fan of like using sports analogies, but the one thing that I love is the Yankees, right? The Yankees, they don't have the names on the back of their jerseys for one reason. That's because they operate as a team, as a single unit. And whether you're a one-man band or whether you're a company with over 100 employees like we are at TC Backer, maintaining that team atmosphere and that culture that continues to help us thrive and move forward is one of the most important foundations that I'd say any company has.
Amen, brother. Good stuff. How about you, Pete?
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me is never stop learning. I think when you assume that you know it, you're losing, right? You're going to lose, right? So never stop learning. And that could be learning from your competition. Like I think of a post Corey Combs from South Shore Roofing put up the other day about having lunch with his competition. Right? You're learning from all of these people. Learn from these guys in the industry that have been doing it for a long time. Learn from your tech platform people who are talking to 100 contractors a day. Even personally for me, like I made a transition last year out of a partnership role that I had been in for years to the product side of the business. And it has been an incredible learning experience for me. Obviously, the way those guys think and operate is so much different than, like I was in partnerships. I was just like, oh yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a fantastic idea. And then you get on the product side and you realize all of the details and how detailed these guys are and how they logically think through everything. And it's been a huge eye opener for me, of the way to just address things and the way to approach these, building these things and how much that equates to, building a company. Like don't overlook the details, but just don't ever stop learning, as you move through this process, because you may think, but you only know a portion of it. All of us have strengths and weaknesses. And, I think that, you can learn a lot from having the right people around you.
I love that. I love both of what you guys said. I'm going to try to galvanize and roll this all up into one. But when Mike, you were talking about leadership and what went through my head was the atmosphere of co-leadership development, right? Like we're all here for each other. We're all here to level each other up and support each other. And it's not about like what I did. It's about what we can accomplish together as a team, because what I can't do by myself, we can do together. Right. And then to try to solidify what you were saying, Pete, was, the moment that I stopped learning, I stopped growing. I become ignorant, right? I become one of the most dumbest people sitting in a room. And half the time I think I'm the smartest guy in the room once I stop learning, right? The journey is continue growth, continue learning, so I can continuously sharpen my skills to become a better human being, to become a better father, to become a better co-leader, right? And my job here is to be the CEO, the chief energy operator. Right. I need to bring the heat. I need to keep my skills sharpened and try to lead by example. So everybody else, like I walk into other people's offices now. I saw Chris Baker had one of my favorite books to date. Martin, not Martin, but shoot, I can't remember the name of it, but I saw he had a book in his office. I saw Ben had a book in his office, like that's the atmosphere that we're trying to create is co-leadership development and continuous education, whether it's self-education or what education that we offer here at TC Backer. So anyhow, that concludes episode 224. Great freaking topic, guys. Even though we didn't get into the personal weeds a little bit, I think Roofr's a great product and the flow of the conversation was going phenomenal. I appreciate you, Pete. Mike, I love you to death. And, I just, what a great conversation, Pete. And we need to stay in touch. I know we say that all the time, and I'm guilty of not reaching out as often as I could. But before we get off here, I always like to plug the, Behind the Tool Belt. Make sure you like, love, share, comment, leave a review on not Instagram, but YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google. If you haven't subscribed, please do that the moment that you get off here. And then I think Matt Radford put a link in there to be able to subscribe to Roofr. So if any of our viewers are out there, make sure you go back through the comments and like, love, subscribe, sign up. Matt Radford. I'm not sure if he would be your liaison or if Pete would be, but I'm sure there's somebody over there at Roofr that would be more than willing and capable.
Yeah, I think that's the link to the podcast, to our podcast.
Okay. Well, what's the best way to get a hold of you guys, Pete?
The best way is just to hit us up. Any of the sales guys can help, or you can hit up myself, Matt, Richie, Nick, any of us on Facebook. Even if you guys are on there, like you always see us active in the comments and the Facebook groups and stuff like that. Any way you can grab any of us, just we're always here to help. Right, we're always available.
Would it be www.roofr.com?
Yep. Or I'm Pete at Roofr. Matt is Matt at Roofr. Right, so you can hit any of us up. It's a pretty simple way to get in touch with us. But yeah, we're always here to help.
Love it. Love you guys. All right. Well, thank you for hanging in there with us, man. And hopefully you guys enjoy the rest of your day. We will see you next week for episode 225 of Behind the Tool Belt. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.